parents, Mrs. Strawn here. Today we're coming to you with some helpful tips and tricks in relation to your math classes for this semester. Mrs. Crowley and I both teach math here at 1010 Academy, and we have both been doing so for a few years now. And we thought it would be really helpful to come alongside you guys and help you get your year started off on the right foot. So Mrs. Crowley is going to be doing the first part of our video today. She's going to be talking about how to successfully take notes in class. And then I'll take over with some tips and tricks to help set yourself up for how to incorporate math into your daily lives. And that section will be for parents and students both. So hold on tight. It's going to be a fun year. And if you get started off on the right foot with your math, I do firmly believe that math will not be as much of a thorn in your flesh for your school year.
Well, hello students. Mrs. Crowley here. As Ms. Strawn shared with you in our introduction, we would like to help you get started on your year of successful math. I always like to tell you that yes, math can be fun, but even if it's not, when you learn to do it, you can be successful at it. So grab a notebook, grab some pens, pencils, and let's talk about taking successful notes in math class. So first things first, if this is your piece of paper in math, first important thing I want you to write down right now, anything that the teacher writes on the board, I should write down. So your teacher could be talking for quite a while, like Miss Crowley can do sometimes, but your first important thing is if a teacher writes something on the board, you should write it down. If we write the date down, I'm going to make up a date here. You should write the date down so you can go back to your notes when you're doing your work on your own. So you have what lesson it is, or the date of the lesson. Whatever lesson your teacher is covering, write it down, okay? So that you know what page in your book to go back to. They might write a page, they might write a lesson number, but especially with math, you need to know what you're looking for, okay? Then the next important thing that you should remember is every example that your instructor writes down, you should write down. It would be helpful if you write down the example number that it is. If your teacher writes example 1, you should write example 1 because your teacher what? Wrote it on the board. Okay, example 1 today is 2 times 3. You say, but Miss Crowley, that's so easy. Well, of course it's easy. Math is easy. But if you're saying right now, math isn't easy for you, here are some tips to help it easy for you. We talked about write down everything that your instructor writes down. If you like different colors, take a different color and do your notes in a different color. A lot of times, red or orange or brighter color will help you see the note better. This is our example 1, okay? And our answer is 6. If you are a creative person and you like to make them different colors, that will help you learn your lessons. If you're more creative, maybe you like to box your answer. Okay? Maybe your teacher gave you a trick just while they were talking of how to figure out a multiplication problem like this, but you were so creative, you wanted to draw it. You can have time to do that while you're taking notes. And finally, parents, if you're watching this with your students and you find also that a student's very visual, most instructors with permission will allow a student to take a screenshot of the board if they have a phone or a device to do that. It's always with permission. I always, before I erase my board, allow my students, if they want to take a screenshot, they can do that. But it's so important, students, that you learn successful ways to take notes, okay? Another way that you need to learn to take notes is if you tend to write all over the page and it's really hard to stay organized, you can turn your paper sideways. So Miss Crowley is going to erase this the best way I know how to erase that. Okay, and I'm going to draw a piece of paper here. If this is your piece of paper, as it would normally be, and we know that notebook paper has lines on it. If you think about it, if you turn your notebook paper sideways, you actually have columns. Okay, this is a normal notebook paper. You actually have columns that you can write numbers in. So now we're looking at a piece of paper. If you turn it this way, and this is your side, you now have columns this way that you can keep your numbers in an organized fashion. So if you've never learned to take notes before, find what works best for you. Again, write everything that the teacher writes on the board. Write your example numbers. Draw your examples or turn your paper sideways. Draw an example. Another thing, if you're a Math 8-7 student, actually I believe every level of math that we teach here, formulas are super important in math. Okay, Miss Crowley is a huge fan of 3x5 cards. So I'm going to write that here. 3x5 cards to memorize formulas. Okay, this way you can play a game at home to test yourself. You can write your formula. You can draw pictures of angles if you need to memorize that for a quiz or an exam. This is an excellent way as a memorization tool that your parents can quiz you. So 3x5 cards is an excellent tool. Okay. Another example for memorization is singing a song. If you are in a level of math where you need to memorize your multiplication facts and you enjoy music, do what works for you. Put it to a song. There's a lot of things that you can find with your parents' permission on YouTube videos or even schooling websites that are good for you to learn how to memorize. So, memory keys. Memory keys. Notice I wrote this on the board. So if you're taking notes with me right now, you should write down memory keys. 3x5 cards. Color. Take your notes in a different color. Studies have shown that if you use a color like red or orange, or I actually believe pink and purple was included in there also, that your eye catches it and it's easier to follow in your notes. If you want to use one color of pen and then use a highlighter, you can highlight your answer. So if we do our example, so let's move on to example 2 here. 2 times 3 times 2. If I do that, I know 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12. But I want to remember how I got to this answer. I'm going to switch colors. And I'm going to say I did 2 times 3 is 6, and then 6 times 2 was 12. And I switched colors. Okay, so let's review real quick. You're writing everything that the teacher has written on the board. Okay, you wrote your lesson number and the page that the teacher's working off of, or your instructor. Okay, and also every example that they're doing. Right now we're talking about some memory keys or even some learning tools for you. We talked about how great 3x5 cards can be. Use your favorite color. If you notice Miss Crowley changed to purple, that's my favorite color and it helps me at least enjoy taking notes. Okay, and another key here is trace it. If you've worked a problem out in later on in the year as your math gets more difficult, and that was really a difficult problem, but you've gone over the answer, you've corrected it, trace it a couple times. It actually shows that when you trace something, your hand works with your memory to go back over the answer, especially when you're getting ready perhaps for a quiz or an exam. Tracing it can help with a memorization tool. So again, back to just taking notes in class. You need to figure out, and the responsibilities on you as a student, figure out what works for you. It's important in math, as Ms. Schron is going to share with you, how practice makes proficiency. Do it over and over and over again. If it helps you to turn your page, like we talked about, turn your page. When your teacher or instructor moves on to a different example, follow along in the book. I want you to repeat it. When I'm in class, I will follow along in the book. Okay, that way what our eyes see and what our hands do makes the connection that you are going to be successful at math this year. You can do it. You have the tools to do it, and we believe in you.
All right, Mrs. Sharon, back at you. This section of the video is really to set your family up for success for this year. A lot of parents come to me asking for how to help their kids with math, and sometimes that leads to some conversations about lifestyle and how the home runs and stuff. So take these as just tips and tricks that I have learned as a 13-year homeschool mom who my kids have gone through advanced math, which is pre-calculus, and just things I learned over the years, not because I've done them perfectly, but because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from those. This advice also comes from being in the math classroom here in the co-op setting for so long. I have taught math now between our legacy group, ICAP, and 1010 Academy. I've taught math for about 6 years, and I tutor students in math. Shameless plug, I do accept charter funds, and so I've learned a lot over the years about what helps students enjoy math or enjoy math more, and then how to help create a more peaceful environment in the home with a little bit of structure and just some good planning, a good offense for your school year. It tends to be that math is every family's least favorite subject. That is what I tend to see across the board. Math is tough. And I want to start off too by just giving you a little bit of my math testimony. And this is for students and for parents alike. I, growing up, was terrible at math. I didn't know my math facts, my multiplication tables, until I didn't really have them firmly down until adulthood. I was the kid who sat in my room with the push button thing that had the 3 times 3 and you had to push it down, and then when the plastic got close to the answer you could see through it. I had all the things, all the toys. No one entered into my world and helped me, but I had a lot of tools. It just didn't make sense to me. Got into very gracefully through some graceful teachers, graduated high school with what I needed to in math credits, and then I entered into college. My first math class, the teacher was a probably 65-year-old man, seemed like he was a retired military, very firm. I had to withdraw from that class because I was doing so poorly. Took a semester off for math, went back in the next year to my college math class, my college algebra class, and I finished the course with 104% in the class. Something clicked, something changed for me, and I had been branded not a math person, and I think that branding fed into my understanding of what I was capable of. And so I have been fighting, and I tell my students this every year if I teach math courses, that if it doesn't come naturally, sometimes you have to fight a little bit harder for things, but we can master these concepts. Some people easier than others, but even if it takes your whole life, you can be a math person. Some of you may not want to be, and that's okay, but as an adult, I have now found the beauty of math, and I actually love it. One of my favorite things to do is factor polynomials. So, and if that doesn't make sense to you yet, it might this year in your Algebra 1 classes. But anyway, so that's just a little bit about my math background. I now teach math, love encouraging people in math because it's something that I was told I couldn't or wasn't made to do. And through hard work and the help of the Lord and just some dedication, I have now become somebody who truly enjoys and loves math. Now, back to how to set up your home for success this year for your math studies in your homeschool. Number 1, my first piece of advice is to start every day with math. Start your learning day with math. Have it be the first thing your kids do when you start your school day. Make sure that they've, hopefully we're all having a good night's sleep. Make sure they've had a good breakfast, and then send them away to work on their math. Okay, or however you guys do your schooling, if it's all in one room or side by side, send them away to do math. If you find, here's another tip that I just thought of, if you find if you send them away because you have multiple children and you're managing all the different things, if you find that it's taking them a long time to do math, you may need to sit next to them to help to do math. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are teaching them. It just means that there's a greater level of accountability, and students, you know this, if mom and dad are sitting next to you or your teacher is sitting next to you, you're probably going to stay a little bit more focused. That's not a thing of punishment. It's just a thing of encouragement and accountability. You know what? If this is taking you so long, I'm going to enter into your world. I'm going to sit next to you for 45 minutes, and I am going to be a source there next to you of encouragement while you do your math work. My second piece of advice is to do math every day. Okay, I know some of us have busy schedules, but you need to make math a priority. Sometimes students struggle so much with math because they're not doing it consistently enough. And like Mrs. Crowley said, practice makes proficiency. So we're not looking for perfection, but we want to come alongside you and help you learn how you're going to master these concepts. And unfortunately, one of the ways of doing that is by doing math every day. When you're traveling, math. Over the summer, math. On Fridays, when some of us like to take days off, math. Field trips or educational excursions, get up a little bit earlier, math, then go. Learn to do math in the car. Learn what fits best for your family, but my advice is really to make sure you do math every day. Well, at least 5 days a week, okay, school days. Start your math day off with corrections, okay? So parents need to grade the work daily. So our classes, we offer the instruction, we offer the pacing, we offer the quiz, tests, and accountability, but we are not there 7 days a week in your home to grade the students' work. You will find the most success if you grade their work every day, and then the next day the student starts with those corrections. You will start to notice patterns and issues in their understanding or in their learning that then you can sit down with them at the end of the week or on Tuesdays before they come into the classroom for us on Wednesdays, and you can give them a sticky note or put something in their notebook that they're going to have with a list of things that maybe they're struggling with so that they know what to ask when they get into the classroom. A lot of times I start my math classes off by saying, how was your week? How are the lessons this week? Do you have any questions? And I get a lot of blank stares. And I know that kids are having issues with things. They just don't know what to say. Set them up for success by giving them the tools that they need to learn how to ask questions and maybe even practice how to ask questions. Sometimes being in the classroom is new for some of our students, and so there is a little bit of anxiety about maybe how to ask a question. And so run through them. Practice that on your way to school, how to ask a question. And then have them do those corrections. If you're noticing patterns and inconsistencies, reach out to the teacher and utilize that classroom time. If your student is really struggling, another idea is to have math homework, okay? So students in public and private school, and I know this because I went to public school, and I'm sure it's only gotten worse since my day, way back when the Tyrannosaurus rexes were still roaming the earth. But we used to go to school, we had a math lesson, we did math in class, and then we went home and we had math homework. Many of our students just do their math work, right? And then they go on with the rest of their day, and they don't ever experience homework. So if you have a student that's really struggling and needs some of that more practice to get to that proficiency, an idea is for you to do the math first thing in the morning, for parent to grade the math sometime after that happens in the afternoon, have them finish their school day, take a break, and then maybe right before dinner or right after dinner, have them do some math homework. Have them do some worksheets or some support materials that you might have. And if you need suggestions for some of those things, I will get to that in a minute, but you can also reach out to me or Mrs. Crowley or your math teacher. Speaking of those extra resources, don't forget to utilize all the free things there are online. So YouTube videos, even if we use Saxon, the publisher Saxon here at 1010 Academy, type in Saxon 87 videos. You will find a plethora of people who have posted videos. I even have some YouTube videos up for you to utilize if you're doing Algebra Half, which it's not moving forward this year because we didn't have any enrollment for it. But YouTube videos, Khan Academy is subject-based or concept-based, so you can find videos that will help encourage your students in those. Pinterest, type in factoring polynomials if they're struggling with that, and you might find links to videos and resources. And then you can even Google free worksheets, factoring polynomials, and print some things out just to help keep that drilling going, to help keep it fresh in their minds, okay? going back to what I said a little bit earlier, do math over breaks. I'm going to tell you a little story. I have a math student that I tutor. Her mom originally contacted me and said she doesn't understand this concept or that concept. Retention's an issue. We want to start doing math over the summer. When I started meeting with this student, she was struggling and it was very difficult for her. We started meeting twice a week for an hour a week, and now we've been working with her for about a year and a half, and she has mastered fractions, she's mastered percents, she's mastered her times tables, she's mastered converting measurements and units and all these things. I've just watched her come alive, and now she gets so excited about doing math. So some extra work doing math over breaks, doing math over summer. And I don't necessarily mean doing 60 problems a day over summer, even 5 problems a day. If your teacher tends to assign odds, do the evens over summer. Do 5 to 10 problems a day, even if you just can do it 3 days a week over summer, because the learning, you want some relaxation time during summer and when the learning year is done. But doing math over breaks will really help. What I've noticed too with the same student that I worked with, we have been blowing through curriculum and she's been advancing very quickly because we don't take breaks. When we start the next book, there's probably 20 lessons that we just kind of touch on and review, but we blow through 10 lessons a week because she has not taken that break and needed that reinforcement at the beginning of the school year. So it's actually going to make your math life more efficient. And I'm a big fan of efficiency. All right. One more thing, a couple more things actually, and this is getting more kind of into some of the philosophies behind math. What I always told my kids and what I always tell my students is character over right answers. The Lord wants us to have a teachable spirit. When we have a teachable spirit, our eyes and ears and hearts are more open to learning. It takes the emotion out of things, and it helps us to be able, or helps our brains to be able to process things as well. So I've always told my students, if you get 100%, no one's going to crown you king, and if you miss half the problems, no one's going to throw you in jail, okay? But use the tools that you have to help your math life progress, okay? Have good character, ask for help. Don't throw fits, don't get angry, don't let emotion enter into the math. It's kind of funny because math is a very black and white thing. There's a right and wrong answer. It's very logical. And because of that, it seems like the enemy wants us to infuse a bunch of emotion into it to make it harder. So try to keep the emotion out of math. It's okay to be frustrated. That happens to all of us. I completely understand that. But try to stress character and teachable spirit over perfection or right answers. If you, as the main and primary homeschool parent, struggle with math, that's very common. A lot of us do. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I mentioned earlier that my students went up into pre-calculus. I did not teach them that. My abilities, my current abilities, stop at about geometry. I can do some algebra too. It would take a lot of time, I'll be honest, and we'll get to that in a minute too. But I had to ask for help. So we utilized all of the support materials that Saxon provides. They have a textbook, they have an answer guide, they have a solutions manual that gives you the step-by-step solutions, and they have DVDs. There are 2 sets of DVDs. One is called Saxon Teacher, which is sectarian, and you can use charter funds to purchase if you're a charter family. And then there's another set called Dive, which does infuse some spiritual content into it, so that cannot be purchased. But the Saxon Teacher, again, every problem, every example, every solution is done on a board with a teacher, and their DVDs, they're phenomenal when you hit a point when you're struggling. So utilize those support materials, but also don't be scared to ask family and friends. Ask dad to step in. It just tends to be, and we're going to change this, girls, but it just tends to be that men are better at math or have been more successful at math, or they're in careers that are more math-minded. Again, we're changing that. But sometimes it's good to ask dad to come in, or a tutor, or a family member. Another thing, moms, if you're the primary homeschool person in the home, a lot of times there's a relationship that's been built up between you and your children or your students that allows them to maybe speak to you differently or be more comfortable with you. Sometimes bringing a different voice in will help not only a relationship with your kids, but it will help your kids interact with that person maybe with a little more thought in how they communicate. We'll just leave that one right there. Next, set up a reward system. Now this obviously is going to be better for younger students, but reward systems tend to be positive reinforcement based, and so with that whole concept of taking the emotion out of it, that might really help. You know, if you do your math, if you do it joyfully, or if you have a teachable spirit, whatever issue it is that has entered into your home in regards to math, think and pray about how you can encourage your student through positive reinforcement to getting to that proficiency level. And it might really help to take some of the emotion out of things. Now, parents, I'm going to say some hard things next, so you might want to pause this video, watch it first, and then you may want to share it with your students. You may not want to share it with your students, but I'm going to say some hard things. And again, this is coming from a mom who may have gone before you a little bit, somebody with a lot of experience in teaching math and tutoring and all of those things, and then also someone who has learned from her own mistakes. So this is not a pedestal. This is me just being real with you guys about some things that you may need to consider about your life and your lifestyle in your home that might make your student more successful. And we all love our children so much, and we want them to be successful, and we want them to feel proud of themselves and not embarrassed or we don't want negative emotions about anything that they're learning. And math tends to be one of those things that we attach negative emotions to. Again, I know that from experience being not a math person. I was told I was a social butterfly and not a math person. I don't know what I was supposed to do with that butterflyness, but anywho, some hard things. So you may have to be willing to sit down and relearn some math, okay? I know we all at least went through algebra in school. You may have to be willing to do the hard work to help your student. If you can't afford tutoring, if you can't afford or don't have the resources to bring in another parent or a family member. I homeschooled pretty much by myself. My husband did help in some areas, but and we did hire a tutor for 1 year, but I didn't have the resources, and I don't have family members to help. So that meant I had to relearn math, part of why I am where I am today with math. But and you can then tell your kids, hey, look, I know this is hard, but I'm doing it, and I'm doing it with you. Like it can be a bonding experience for you to enter into with your kids. You're gonna need to make sacrifices to make your kids successful. If you relearning isn't an option, can you stop drinking Starbucks? Can you stop maybe going out to eat on Sundays to help you afford to hire that tutor or that help person? Can you exchange services with somebody? If you know someone who's good at math and but they're really busy, could you offer to pull their weeds or do their yard work or clean their kitchen while they tutor your student in math? There are creative things that you can do to come alongside, and there are sacrifices that you can make to come alongside your students to help make them successful. I've said this quite a few times, but this is really big with teenagers, and I'm learning this. We need to enter into their world. So we need to enter into their math with them and learn what they're struggling with, what emotions they've built up over the years, what things they're telling themselves when they're doing math. And we need to help them remove those messages, and we need to enter into their world to help them be successful. Let's see. Oh, don't let anger, I wrote this one out, so hold on. Don't let anger or negative emotion be your response to math. They already have enough of that themselves. This generation that we're dealing with that's coming up, there's so much pressure on them. There's so much information coming at them. There's so much comparison going on. Don't let that enter into your math world. We need to be a voice of encouragement and love for our students. And I'm going to just give you a scenario here. Student asks for help. Mom looks at it. I have no idea what this is saying. You're going to have to ask your dad. Or, I don't know, ask your teacher. Or this doesn't make any sense. Let's just put it away for the day. How about if we said, wow, that looks really tough. You know what? Let's sit down because I've got Johnny and Susie doing their cursive writing right now, and then Joey's taking a nap at 1. So why don't we set aside time at 1:15, me and you, we're going to sit down. You know what, I heard about these great free resources on Khan Academy. Let's watch the video. Let's see if we can make sense of it together. If not, when Dad gets home, we'll ask him. And if we still can't figure it out, you know what Mrs. Crowley told us on Wednesday? She starts the class off by asking if we need help with something. Why don't we write a sticky note for your journal, and then you can take that into class and you can ask her. You have a lot of control over the emotion that your kids have, specifically related to their learning. If you display negative emotions or anger about math, they're going to take that on and they're going to learn that. It's a learned behavior a lot of times. And forgive me if that was too forward, but I just think we can do better. And again, that's coming from experience. I have not been the perfect mother. I have not done math perfectly, but I have learned through my mistakes. And so I'm just trying to help you guys learn through my mistakes too. That whole idea of, those that have gone before, helping those who are coming up. So that's the heart of this whole video, is that we wanted to just try to help you guys with your math this year. It tends to be, again, the biggest stressor in the homeschool journey. And so we figured we could just help you with some tips and tricks and to set your students up for success and then set your household up for success. If you have any questions about anything that we've said here, please reach out. You have our emails, and you also have access to us through Edmodo, which hopefully we'll get you all set up on soon here. We love you, and we're going to pray for a good math year for everybody, and thank you for your time.